The sun rises over the eastern hills, spilling gold into the courtyards of Chang'an. Within its honeyed light, the city stirs to life, opening its eyes to another day. In the heart of the city, hidden within a warren of narrow streets, a small house awakens. Its residents stir within their cool, dark rooms, their faces half hidden behind silk pillows. This is the home of a humble merchant, his wife and their 2 children, where the silk of their bed hangings catches the first rays of dawn. And in this quiet before the waking, we meet our narrator, a young servant who has woken before the sun. The morning comes before the sun. You hear the faint rustle of bamboo leaves outside, the distant sound of a rooster from somewhere in the walled city of Chang'an. But you cannot lie still. Your day has already begun. The stone floor is cold beneath your bare feet as you rise from your narrow sleeping mat, tucked behind the kitchens in a small, dark room, the only window blocked by a shelf holding jars of pickled onions. The air smells faintly of ashes from yesterday's cooking fires. Outside, the tiled roofs are silver with frost. You take up the straw broom, its bristles stiff and sharp. The courtyard stretches before you, a mosaic of smooth stone, flanked by corridors with carved wooden railings, each step capped with a different design, the patterns worn smooth by countless feet passing between. The lanterns have burned low, their paper sides curling from the night's moisture. You sweep slowly, carefully, so that no leaf is out of place when the masters awaken. In the Tang Dynasty, a servant's work was as much about anticipation as action. No one told you precisely what to do. Instead, you were expected to sense the needs of those above you, to refill a cup before it was empty, to notice a speck of dust before the lady of the house did. If you failed, the punishment was not always loud. Sometimes it was worse. A cold silence, a look, a subtle change in the tone of your name. Your name, which means bright or shining, depending on the whim of the speaker. There were 3 other servants in the house, 2 men and a girl your age. You don't know her story, only that she arrived as a bride for the eldest son. But he took one look at her and declared her sickly. She spends most of her days by the window, watching the world go by. You sometimes imagine what it would be like to be the lady of the house, sipping tea from a golden cup while she watches the courtyard through her window. But such thoughts are selfish and dangerous. Best to let the master catch you thinking of yourself and risk a sharp word than dreaming of replacing the mistress. You gather the last of the fallen leaves and press them into a neat pile against the far wall. Then return to the kitchens, where the cook is already busy over the fire. In the Tang Dynasty, meals came after the family had eaten. You eat whatever is left, rarely warm and sometimes cold. You wear the same faded robe season after season, patching its tears until there is no more patch cloth left. You dream of a robe like those worn by the daughters of the house, satin and cloud, brocade and gold, the colors shifting like oil on water. You put your dreams aside and move restlessly through the household. When the second son leaves for school, you run to the front courtyard to open the gates for him. He barely acknowledges your existence, and neither does anyone else in the household. You walk behind them, keeping pace with their measured steps and watching their backs. For a moment, you see the lady of the house turn and smile at something her husband has said. Her face is as delicate as porcelain, her waist as slim as the column in the courtyard. Her laughter tinkles like the wind chimes hanging beside the gate. Your day is filled with small tasks, carrying messages between rooms, fetching water from the well, lighting the evening oil lamp, wiping down the table after dinner. The silk gowns of the household shimmer in the sunlight streaming through the window, and you long to feel silk against your skin. You straighten a painting that hangs crookedly in the hallway, admiring the crane whose neck is curved like the moon, a crane that will never fly away. That night, lying on your straw mat in the dark corner of the kitchen quarters, you dream of flying. When you wake, the sky is the color of lavender, and the eldest daughter is standing in the doorway. She holds a length of brocade in her hands, twisting it idly as she regards you. Today, you will help her dress for her outing in the city. As she sits, you take the pins from her hair, letting your fingers linger on her scalp. She shivers beneath your touch, and you immediately regret it. The girl brings water from the well, and you wash the young lady's face, letting the cool water trickle over your wrists. You admire the white lotus blossoms woven into her hair. Soon she will ride through the city, surrounded by her attendants, all of them clad in silk, all of them beautiful. She will sit in a sedan chair carried by strong bearers, its interior padded with brocade and perfumed with musk and amber. She will not feel the scrape of the sedan chair poles on the stone ruts, nor hear the shouts of street vendors hawking their wares. In her world, the finest teas are always hot, the juiciest peaches always ripe, and silk garments always fresh laundered. You return to the courtyard with the empty basin. A fat bumblebee drones lazily nearby. You wish you could be as carefree as it, to spend the day dawdling from flower to flower, gathering pollen and nectar instead of sweeping fallen leaves and chasing stray cats out of the gardens. You see a hummingbird hovering over a bush, its beak probing for nectar, its wings a blur of iridescent blue. How wonderful it must be to be able to fly. You follow the sound of hammering from the blacksmith, shop near the south gate, and find the third young man testing a new blade. The glint of metal catches your eye, and you reach out to touch it. Startled, the young man pulls the blade back. Blood wells up around the cut, and he cries out. Hastily, you fetch water and clean the wound as best you can. He tells you his name, Lu Qi, and you tell him yours, although he won't remember it. He asks about your life here in the merchant's house, and you describe it truly, saying nothing of your secret longing for beauty, for silk, for a life of leisure and ease. Later, you find him again in the courtyard, practicing with a wooden sword. This time, he lets you watch and even teaches you how to hold the sword. The tip of the blade grazes your arm, leaving a red line that blooms into a bruise. When the young master returns from school, you duck out of sight, hiding behind the latticed window of the old library. Inside, the pages of ancient books are stacked like fallen leaves. The scent of wood smoke lingers in the air. The young master enters, frowning. You watch him as he walks, the elegant curve of his shoulders, the easy confidence with which he moves. Would it be wrong to love him? To want to brush the sweat from his neck or thread the girdle through his sash? The mere thought makes your cheeks burn. That night rain drums against the roof, drumming out a steady tattoo. Thunder rumbles, shaking the very foundations of the house. The young master sits on the edge of his bed, reading a book, and you bring him water in a small clay pot. He looks up, smiling faintly, and you see that his face is like finely ground jade. After he falls asleep, you leave the water on his desk and hurry to your room. In the dark, you pull your thin blanket tight around you, seeking comfort in its worn fabric. You think of the young master, wonder if he, too, dreamed of a better life. You fall asleep with the sound of rain still drumming in your ears. When you wake, the storm has passed, leaving the air fresh and sweet-smelling. Sunlight streams through the windows, illuminating motes dancing in the air. You slip out into the courtyard to find the others already gathered there. The young master is missing. Anxiously, you ask where he is. The young lady replies that he has gone to the mountains to escape the heat. She sees the worry in your eyes and adds, "Do not fret. He will be back before the moon turns full." Relieved, you return to the kitchen to start the day's work. As you move through the rooms of the house, you straighten pictures and pour water for the cook. Lay out fresh bedding for the young ladies. All these tasks you perform without a word of thanks. You are unseen, unheard. You exist in the spaces between the lives of the people you serve. In the quiet moments when the house holds its breath, you come alive. You dance among the furniture, a ghost in daylight, touching silk and satin, breathing in their luxurious fragrance. Then the family returns, filling the house with their noise and their light, chasing you through the echoing halls like a shadow, a fleeting glimpse of somebody who isn't quite there. The cycle begins anew, endless and unchanging, and you are its constant, unseen, unheard. But as you sweep the courtyard that evening, you catch the glint of starlight in your own eyes, and you realize that even shadows can shine. This is an original poem written in the style of an ancient Chinese poet. There is a story told in hushed voices by those who worked in the great poet S household in Chang'an. Her name was Mei Lin. She was small, quiet, and quick with her hands. She arranged flowers in porcelain vases. She carried tea trays with the balance of a dancer. The poet often wrote in the open courtyard, brush moving in smooth arcs across silk paper. Mei Lin was never invited to speak to him, but she listened to the murmured lines, to the pauses between his thoughts. Sometimes, when she cleaned his study, she found scraps of discarded paper, a single character, a half-formed image of clouds, or the edge of a poem that had been abandoned. In the dim light of her small room, she began to write her own words on the backs of those scraps, not in the bold style of court poets, but in delicate, uncertain strokes. Her poems were not about emperors or battles. They were about the shadow of a camellia on a winter wall, the way frost makes the bamboo leaves bow. No one knew she wrote them, until the day a spring storm flooded part of the servants' quarters. Her small wooden box of treasures was soaked through, and the scraps of poetry drifted into the courtyard like fallen petals. The poet's wife found them. Instead of punishment, she quietly gathered the scraps and placed them in a silk pouch. Some say the pouch still exists, tucked away in an antique chest somewhere in the city. But the poems were never finished. They remain fragments, like whispers from a servant's world, a world of seeing everything, but being seen by almost no one. When I first read this poem, I was struck by how it evokes the feeling of living in the shadow of greatness. Mi-Lin is a small, quiet woman who lives in the service of a famous poet. She's not stupid, but she's certainly naive, and she seems to be entirely defined by her role as a servant. The whole story is told from her point of view, and we experience the world through her eyes. We see how observant she is of the poet, and how she is acutely aware of her place in his hierarchy. She spends all her time listening to him recite his poetry and watching the way he moves and thinks. When he throws something out, she saves it, and in doing so, she becomes his equal. But there's also a kind of desperation to this. It feels like she's trying to fill some kind of void inside herself by living vicariously through the poet. She wants to be more than just a servant, but she doesn't know how. The discovery of her poems is a turning point in the story. It's the first time we see her assert herself and take control of her own life. She's risking everything by writing on the backs of the poet's discarded papers. But it's worth it because it gives her a sense of purpose and meaning. For the first time, she's able to express herself and share her perspective with the world. But it's also a dangerous game. And when her secret is discovered, she's punished. The irony is that she's not punished for stealing or spying, or any of the other things the poet or his wife could have accused her of. She's punished for writing poetry, which is something they should have encouraged. This shows how stifling and restrictive their world really is. It's a world where creativity is seen as a threat and originality is punished. But the fact that she's punished so harshly also shows how powerful her work is. If they can crush her without consequence, then clearly she's not a threat to them. The fact that they react so violently to her poetry shows how dangerous it is. Another thing I thought was interesting about this poem is the contrast between the poet and his wife. The poet is obviously a genius, but he's also kind of a jerk. He uses Mi-Lin and takes advantage of her position, but he doesn't seem to care about her feelings. He's not malicious, but he's certainly oblivious. His wife, on the other hand, is much more sympathetic. She understands the value of creativity, and she's willing to stand up for it. She doesn't punish Mi-Lin because she sees how talented she is, and she recognizes that her work deserves to be shared with the world. The ending of the poem is both tragic and hopeful. On one hand, it's tragic because Mi-Lin's work is never finished, and it seems like her talent will be wasted. She die, and her poetry will be lost forever. But it's also hopeful because her work does get shared. The fact that the poem ends with the line like whispers from a servant's world suggests that her voice has been marginalized and silenced, but it's still heard. Her poetry may not have been published or widely circulated, but it still resonated with people, and that's all that really matters. Overall, I think this is a beautifully written and moving poem. It's a story about the power of creativity and the importance of giving voice to the marginalized. It's also a cautionary tale about the dangers of censorship and the need to protect freedom of expression. Okay, now it's your turn. What did you think of this poem? What did you find most interesting or thought-provoking? Let me know in the comments below. And if you liked this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. The winter in Chang'an begins to fade, but the nights still hold a thin bite of cold. It is the 15th night of the first lunar month, the Lantern Festival, one of the grandest nights in the Tang calendar. You have been up since before sunrise, polishing brass oil lamps, checking the silk covers for tears, and ensuring the wicks are trimmed to burn evenly. By mid-morning, the courtyard is alive with the quiet chaos of preparation. Master artisans arrive to deliver great paper lanterns, painted with cranes, carp, and dragons, each as tall as a man. A troupe of musicians unloads stringed instruments, the sound of tuning notes drifting like wind chimes through the gates. From your place in the servant ranks, you will not watch the festival in leisure. Move unseen, carrying trays of food through crowded walkways, replacing burned-out lanterns, guiding guests through unfamiliar courtyards. When night falls, Chang'an becomes another world. The streets beyond the mansion glow with an unbroken river of light. Lanterns of every shape and size float in the air like gentle stars pulled down to earth. Poets say the city breathes differently during Lantern Festival nights, as though the glow seeps into the very stones. Inside the noble household, the festival is no less overwhelming. The grand hall is cleared of its usual furniture, replaced with a network of low tables piled with sugared fruits, rice cakes, and bowls of sweet sesame soup. Nobles arrive in shimmering robes, embroidered with phoenixes and lotuses, their perfume mixing with the faint smoke of burning sandalwood. There is a quiet rhythm to the servants' work. Pour the tea, clear the bowls, refill the incense, guide the guest, disappear. Your steps are careful, your eyes lowered. This is not the night to stumble, for the floor is slick with spilled wine, and the lamps throw shifting shadows that confuse the mind. Outside, in the gardens, the largest lantern, a sphere of gold silk painted with a carp leaping toward the moon, sways in the breeze. Guests gather to admire it, whispering about its meaning: prosperity, perseverance, transformation. By midnight, the air has grown heavy with warmth from the crowd. Lanterns sway like flowers nodding in a dream. Fireworks, small by modern standards, pop in the distance, sending red blossoms into the sky. Yet for you, the night is far from over. After the guests drift home, your work begins again, carrying the heavy, oil-slick lantern frames back to storage, sweeping the courtyard until no ash or wax remains. The festival leaves its mark on the noble's memory as a night of beauty, and on your hands as a night of endless, hidden labor. This is our third episode in the series, The Night Shift. The series is set in the 700s AD, during the golden age of the Tang Dynasty. The game is available at a website. Thank you to all of our patrons for making these extra special Tang Dynasty episodes possible. And thank you to everyone for joining us. To play this story, visit a website for even more immersive historical experiences. You can also join us on a messaging platform. You were born into this house, and now you are a woman grown. Your fingers work with practiced ease, laying another perfect brick in the wide hearth of the main courtyard. Mortar sticks to your forearms, slick with sun and salt of 1,000 tiny beads of sweat dotting your upper back. Outside the great gate, merchants call their wares, children play at tag, and old men sip tea under the shade of parasols. Beyond the gate, life spills out, messy and bright. But here in the courtyard, the air hangs still and heavy with the scent of burning charcoal and summer jasmine. You have never seen the lady of this house, but you know she is here, somewhere beyond the latticed doors in the farthest courtyard, veiled and silent. Here, the family name resonates off the smooth flagstone floors and polished pillars. Here, time moves slow and deliberate, measured by the gong's echoing chimes. You do not ask questions of the past. You do not need to. The answers lie scattered around you, broken cups and crumbling tablets telling stories of the years before your time. This is all you have ever known. Here in the inner quarters of a merchant's mansion, your days are long and hot, then cool and still. Your work ends at dusk, but as the full moon rises, the night grows cooler, fuller, and you find yourself wandering the empty courtyards, bare feet slapping against the flags. Cool stone beneath your bare feet, rough plaster scraping your ankles. High above, the moon climbs, a pearl dropping into the indigo sea of the night sky. The gardens, though, they stir in the dark. Crickets chirp from their leafy homes. Fireflies wink amongst the lotus blossoms, and from the moonlit pond, frogs sing their mournful songs. The night is alive, so why is everyone asleep? When the dawn comes, you wake to the sound of silk on silk as your seamstress neighbor dresses. In the common hall, your master is already gone, traveling the river of streets leading to the city's center. With a deep breath, you begin your day. First, water for the orchid plants in the courtyard garden, then sewing a new sash for Mistress Wong, her favorite color, pomegranate red. Time stretches ahead of you, endless and quiet. Outside, the city stirs. You hear the rumble of ox carts and hawkers' calls, but in the courtyards, silence reigns. For 3 hours, you work, for 5, for 7. Sunlight filters through the lattice windows, painting shifting patterns on the ground. You do not stop to watch them dance. There is work to be done. By midday, the heat has arrived, and the courtyard is still. Even the birds have fled to the shade of the tall trees lining the street. The servants are all gone, some to seek shade, others to buy midday cakes at the market. You rest your aching head against the cool stone wall, watching the light shift and turn. Through half-closed eyes, you dream of running barefoot through the streets, feeling the wind in your hair, tasting sweet mango sticky rice from a paper umbrella, bartering for jade hairpins. catching the eye of a passing young lord. You smile, but the courtyard does not offer such pleasures. When the afternoon shadows grow long, you gather with the other servants for tea and idle chatter. Someone mentions the lord's recent trip to the south. Another speaks of her niece who eloped with a scholar. A third complains of her arthritic hands. You listen, sipping your tea until the gong sounds again, calling you back to your tasks. Quickly, you finish your work for the day, the last rays of sunlight touching your hands as you tie off the silk threads. The courtyard falls quiet as the servants file back into the common hall for dinner. Soon, the clink of chopsticks, the gentle murmur of conversation fill the space. It is good to be surrounded by the easy company of your fellow servants, to laugh and eat and tell stories of the day. But today, while cleaning the dining hall, you notice something. One of the lacquered tables is pushed away from the wall, revealing a door set in its place. You pause, wiping down the table. Behind you, the cook grunts as he carries a tray of dishes. Out of the corner of your eye, you see the door open a fraction, then close. What was behind that door? Who goes in and out? Who calls this place home? Beyond the main courtyards lies the inner quarters, a world you may only enter when summoned. Here lives the lady of the house, the noble wife whose life unfolds behind carved screens and moonlit gardens. The floor here is never cold. Polished wooden boards are covered with thick woven mats, and even in winter, braziers keep the air gently warm. The windows are latticed with fragrant cedar, the patterns casting soft shadows on silk walls painted with pale mountains and cranes. The lady's days are long but not heavy with labor. She wakes late, often after the morning incense has already been burned in the main hall. Her attendants, a small, higher-ranked class of servants, dress her hair with jade combs, fastening it with pins shaped like butterflies. Her robes change with the season. In spring, pale green silk embroidered with wisteria. In autumn, rich crimson with gold leaves. She spends her mornings in the study pavilion, reading poetry or exchanging letters with friends from other noble houses. Sometimes she paints small landscapes on silk, her brush dipping into stone ink wells carved in the shape of clouds. Her afternoons might be spent strolling the garden, where a pond mirrors the sky and koi fish ripple the surface. When the household hosts guests, she presides over the inner banquets, feasts where women of high rank sit together sipping plum wine and nibbling delicacies. You, as a courtyard servant, may only glimpse when carrying trays through the doors. Her laughter is soft, practiced, a kind of music meant for social harmony. Her chambers hold treasures you could never imagine owning. Lacquer boxes inlaid with mother-of pearl, carved ivory hairpins, mirrors framed in silver. On festival nights, her jewels catch the light of 100 lamps, casting sparks of color across the walls. And yet, even here, in a life draped in silks and guarded by etiquette, there is confinement. The lady rarely leaves the inner quarters, her world bounded by the mansion walls. Her travels beyond are in curtained carriages, her conversations guarded by the presence of attendants. To you, her life might seem effortless, but it is not freedom, it is ceremony. Every word, every gesture, Every robe chosen is part of an unspoken performance that maintains her place in the fragile web of noble society. From the shadow of the doorway, you see her world and know it is not yours. Her silks will never touch your skin. Her perfume will never cling to your sleeves. Her leisure will never fill your hours. But in the quiet, you notice something strange. She, too, glances at the garden beyond the wall with the same faraway look you have when you see the city streets outside the gate. Two lives, one in luxury, one in service, both bound by walls, both walking the same narrow paths. Each day passes like the last, stitched together with the familiar routine of needlework, each season rolling by like the tides. You cannot remember if spring has come because you are always inside. You've never seen a flower bloom in the courtyard garden, yet you can smell the faintest hint of wisteria on the breeze that slips through the window. Outside the wall, the years drift by, but here, within its sheltering embrace, time slows, becomes timeless. The gongs chime, summoning you to chores, to meals, to rest. The seasons turn. The lady of the house ages. Children are born in the outer courtyards, their laughter tinkling like wind chimes. They grow, learn their lessons, and marry. Their lives unfold like blossoming flowers, vibrant and full of promise. The lady's life, too, has chapters you will never read, sealed behind those heavy carved doors. You hear her voice once, carried on the wind, a soft, melodic sound that lingers like the fragrance of plum blossoms. Other than that, she remains a whisper, a mystery. You wonder what stories her walls contain, what joys and sorrows they hold. Perhaps someday, when the time is right, the jade gate will open and you will glimpse the lady of the house, her face like a pale moon against a backdrop of silk and shadow. Or perhaps the centuries will pass and you will die here in the courtyard, leaving the secrets of the inner quarters to the next generation. Another courtyard servant, born in this house, living in this house, serving in this house until death.